Thank you, Dr. Hegde, for the introduction. I just want to continue from the excellent work that SECON is doing. We are just the software guys on top of the hard work that actually goes onto the ground. You don't realize how difficult it is to convince somebody there's a problem with your property, and the work is being done on the ground, and now it's time to put it onto a database, and that's where I'm taking up from. Press the play. Yeah, give me a minute.
I think they will just fix it in a couple of minutes. We had asked the question to people during lunch break. I think some of you have answered yes, no, and so on. So that data is ready, and we will show it in a couple of minutes. I would like to ask another 2 more questions during coffee break. So if some of you have a good question in mind, because the results of this question, the graph, the final percentage, we will put in the report that we give to the government. So if somebody has a good question to ask, please write it and give it to me. Okay, I am sitting there.
Which button do I press? Joseph. So basically, this is a GIS-based blockchain land record system. It's not just a database. There's also a GIS angle to it because I come from a GIS background. I'll start with this book by Hernando de Soto. He was named after that famous Spanish conqueror, but he's helping the poor in South America right now. He's basically written this book called The Mystery of Capital, and it's one of the most pioneering books on the informal economy, on how you actually help poor registrate and get their land which they're sitting on. And he's also starting a blockchain startup with the Overstock billionaire in trying to develop a land record system, but I don't think it'll be GIS based. It'll be more of a economic based system. So why does capitalism thrive in the West and not in developing countries? The main reason for that is because we have no ability to produce capital. Why do we not produce capital? It's not because we don't have the talent. It's not because we don't have the engineering. It's not because we don't have the intelligence. We have all of that. The only thing that is missing is basically we hold assets in defective forms. We have assets, but it's held in forms which are not documented properly. It's very difficult to actually find out in a developing country. It's still in hard copy, and now it's being computerized, now it's being resurveyed. The whole of India is being resurveyed. SECON is doing an excellent job with that, putting everything into a digital format. And now a system is required to basically make sure that this property comes into a system that will benefit the poor. Why do you call them poor? As you can see, there's more than $9.3 trillion. This was in 2000 when he wrote the book, of illegal real estate held by the poor in developing countries and in communist countries. This was in 2000. If you consider the appreciation in real estate values, all this real estate is there. They're sitting on it, but they don't have a document to say it's theirs. So why do we need a formal document for this? Because if you can make it a formal document, then they can mortgage it, they can take loans against it, they can go to a person who's actually a bank and not to some shady financer who knows them and can only take loans on trust, but on a system that is actually based on a real world system. So basically you uncouple the asset from its physical state and make it into a representational state so that it becomes something like a share, or like when you have a factory And if you have a share of a factory, the factory is there, it belongs to the company, but there are hundreds of shareholders. So that is a benefit. Anybody can sell the share, but they still own the factory, and the factory remains on the ground. So that's basically what we're trying to do, dealing the asset from the representational point. How do you make an asset looks good on the ground, but unless you have a value for it, unless you have a title for it, unless you have a record, a parcel ID for it, it is really not worth anything in the formal economy. It can only be traded in the informal economy. So this is a very good case for blockchain where people basically need something to say, can I trust the system? Is it unimpeachable? This is some of the cases on why should I use a blockchain. As you can see, blockchains basically, it should be used where I need a third party is creating a problem. I need somebody to trust it, and I should be able to basically have authentication and an immutable and an unimpeachable proof of authentication. And also it should be a publicly available system, but in this system that I'm proposing, there are different levels of privileges, so you can actually hide the, depending on the need of the privacy, you can basically show data or not show data. Now, blockchain has become famous because of Bitcoin. But as you can see from here, Bitcoin is just a small opportunity of the blockchain. It's not even a point something percent. The whole reason Bitcoin became famous was because of speculation in finance. But the whole reason blockchain exists is for two reasons. One is to bring transparency, and one is that there is no central authority, but there's a formal trust-based system. So it is based on trust, and this system sets up, the blockchain system sets up systems which are based on trust. So this is the old system of a web-based system where everybody has their own records, and it's an inefficient system, it's expensive, it's vulnerable, not everybody has the same copy, it could be tampered with, you don't really know whose copy is authenticated. What blockchain does is it provides a shared, replicated, and permission ledger. Everybody has the same copy, but I am the bank. I can't tamper your records unless you agree and you see, and all of us agree and do it at the same time. Only then the record will be updated or validated. So these are the basic concepts of blockchain. It's a shared ledger. That means it's shared and it's append only. So you cannot go back and edit it. You can only add to it. Second of all, there's security. In the system that I'm proposing, which is Hyperledger, you can actually have permissioned access. That is a very useful system compared to Bitcoin, which is open and anybody can access. Then the third part is there are smart contracts. Smart contracts is basically a code written to manage the transaction in the blockchain and how exactly it should be accepted for updation. And then the fourth thing is consensus. Now, the difference between my system, it's a public system, and the public systems is the system that I'm proposing is a permission system. So not everybody can read and write into it. It's got permissioned access, and it's got much more high throughput and performance compared to open systems like Bitcoin and Ethereum. This is the growth. It's called Hyperledger, and it's one of the leading permission systems. These are the partners of Hyperledger right now. It was started by IBM, and now Intel has got into it. Cisco has got into it. A lot of the banks are getting into it. These are some of the members. This is the background of the company. The application is called True Title. So basically, there's no single point of failure. There has to be a trust-based system. It's actually a little advanced for its time because the laws don't permit this right now. They are working in the government to change the laws to accommodate. The technology is there, but the law is still based in the 1920s. And this will eliminate common problems like selling to multiple buyers and mortgaging to multiple banks, Benami transactions, denotification. And then it's a permission system. It's not a public system. So you can basically cover transactions. If you're a builder or if you're somebody and you have a special price to somebody and you don't want everybody else to know that price, you can do it in such a way that the system shows only the price to the person who needs to see, and the rest of the people don't even know it exists. So these sort of things you can do in this blockchain. And another thing with Hyperledger is it does not need a currency to transact. You just have logic. You have your own consensus algorithms. You don't need to buy any Bitcoin or Ethereum. There's no currency required to transact. This is already from a proposal. It's been coming into the government of India. This is from Telangana. They are trying to implement it in Telangana in the blockchain system. This is some views from my system. These are the view I'm showing of a transaction of transfer of property between two people. This is a view from the blockchain system. And here I'm transferring the property so the property is transferred to Madeleine Garcia. Now the thing with blockchain, I said, is it prevents the elimination of double spending. So the person who has already sold this property, he cannot sell it again. It's inbuilt into the technology. You cannot do it. If you see this highlighted, the technology itself prevents it from showing any double spending, so he cannot sell it again. And it's got a GIS-based angle to it, so you can see the property in a satellite image, and we can overlay satellite images. This is done in our commercial software, but we can do it in Google Maps. We can do it in OpenStreetMaps, overlay satellite images. And it also has integration to the mortgage industry, and you can basically follow the whole mortgage train and share the mortgage details with the taxation authorities and with the IRS and in the insurers. All of them can be part of the mortgage transactions. It's also integrated now. Hyperledger is probably becoming the most preferred blockchain for permission networks. It's also coming into the Microsoft Azure cloud, and it's soon going to be in the Microsoft Azure cloud. So it's definitely the way to go in the future for permission blockchains. That's about it. Thank you.